Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, gamers, depending on what time you're watching the video at. I'm Araphel, thanks for clicking on my video. So today, I kind of just have like a discussion video about the Elder Scrolls Online. I wanted to get some things off my chest and see what the general community has to say about what's been going on with the game in general. To start off, we could talk about like the big elephant in the room that sort of everyone's addressing right now, and that was the Writhing Wall event, which was advertised to be, you know, this great big once in a lifetime type of event, right? First of its kind in the Elder Scrolls Online, although these types of community events are extremely common in other MMOs. It's actually a core mechanic. So basically there's just been a ton of backlash from the player community in regards to this event, for good reason too. The Phase 3, the final phase, where you go into the Writhing Fortress, it was super bugged. Had some friends that are super into PvE. I'm more of a PvP player myself. I don't do much PvE, besides a few things here and there. You know, they all expressed extreme disappointment with the quality and the form of content that came out with the Writhing Wall event. Supposed to be really cool. It was a huge selling point for the content pass, and you know, it's caused a lot of people to say like, oh, we're basically spending $40 or $50, however much it was, for a mythic and the trial, which, you know, to a certain extent is true. When I purchased the content pass, I saw that mythic, the Monomyth Reforged, was so damn good, I didn't even care about anything else. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pay $40 for that fucking ring. You know what I mean? So there's definitely like some pay-to-win type stuff going on here, which is nothing new for ESO. But it's always been kind of commonly known, especially when, you know, things like Sea Serpent came out, when Oaken Soul first came out. These past few really big mythic drops have been so extremely overpowered that anyone who doesn't have access to it is underwhelmingly underpowered. You know what I mean? So I think maybe that is something that that ZOS can address to make them not look so, you know, greedy as a company. And speaking of ZOS, I just want to kind of smoothly transition to kind of a personal issue that I've had with the company, Zenimax Online Studios. So I'm mainly a PvP player. PvP, you're more prone to interactions, negative interactions specifically, with other players. You're less likely to have a negative interaction with a player in a PvE scenario, right? A cooperative setting. So PvP can get toxic and you know, stuff like that. So I want to talk about how I was, what I believe to be falsely banned. I had received a 3-day suspension. I'm going to flash up on the screen here the email that I got. And the email says something crazy. We'll read through it together. So the real important part here and the key words are: we cannot allow cheating or the exploitation of game mechanics through collusion with associated accounts to locate other players in Cyrodiil, as it is in direct violation of the following sections of our Code of Conduct. And it goes on to state this code of conduct in relation to online competitive games: you will not exploit any bug or abuse any game system. And I just can't think of any way that I've done any of those things. So to me, when the email says collusion with associated accounts to locate other players in Cyrodiil, to me what that means is I'm using an alternate account to spy on another alliance's zone chat to locate where other people are. You know, maybe stream sniping. To me, that's what those kind of things mean, and I just don't do any of that. You know what I mean? When I'm out there in Cyrodiil, like, I just go and I find fights. I might be completely across the map, because that's just where the fight is, the type of fight that I want to get into, whether I'm solo or with a small group, right? We typically like to fight outnumbered and challenge ourselves. So it just brings me to question why I'm getting this this email and this 3-day suspension. So I went ahead and I'm going to flash this next ticket that I replied to them with here on the screen, and you can read it for yourself, but this is what I typed out and I sent back to them, and I received their very typical AI response, which, mind you, it took me 5 days to receive a reply. So my ban was already up. I wasn't necessarily looking to get the suspension reversed, because I sort of had a sour taste in my mouth about the game after this all happened. I didn't even want to fucking hear about it, you know what I mean? So that was fine, but my issue with it is, so I had a warning, my first warning last year in around June, so 2024, and you know, after you get a warning, you start getting suspensions. So this was my first real suspension from the game, 3 days. And typically from, you know, people that I've played with that have gotten banned over the years and stuff like that, I've been informed that, you know, you get potentially a couple 3-day suspensions after the warning, and the next step is a permaban. Now, I've had ESO Plus for like the last 5 years, right? You know, loyal customer, blah, blah, blah. 10,000 hours damn near in the game. It's a lot of time I've spent invested into it. And so the main purpose of me sending this ticket back to them was to potentially get some kind of real reason for why this is now on my account. And something that's also interesting is 2 other players that I regularly play with, their accounts were also banned for the exact same reason at the exact same time. They received this exact same email as I did. Now, nothing that I did with these players is cheating or exploiting or, you know, colluding with other players to you know, whatever the fuck they said. It's just crazy to me that now I have this suspension on my account record. My buddies have this suspension on their account record, and none of us know what caused it. So I sent another email. I haven't received a reply back to it. I replied again after they sent me the automated email. You know, like they were like, oh, after various ZOS support team members have reviewed your ticket, you know, it shows that you did in fact cheat and exploit, and the suspension will remain on your account's record. And I replied again, basically told them I urge you to look into this deeper because I believe somebody has potentially found a way to abuse their AI moderation system. If you've been paying attention to what's been going on with Zenimax, they have been resorting to using AI to ban people. So for example, if you whisper one of your friends that you're, you know, talk to every day, you know they wouldn't report you, you whisper them something crazy that you're not supposed to say, the AI moderation system will automatically flag you and, you know, give you a warning or ban you, or, you know, comms ban, whatever needs to be done. So they have that system in place. It's been in place for, I don't know exactly how long, but I want to say about a year, maybe a year and a half now. And it takes a really long time, guys, to get in contact with a real human being at ZOS to discuss bans and suspensions, etc., etc. So that's what I'm in the process of doing. I'm in the process of trying to speak to a real human and not getting an AI automated response. I'm trying to give them a fair chance before completely shitting on them. It could just be an honest mistake, but I truly, truly believe that somebody out there has figured out a way to abuse this system, whether it be mass reporting or they found a specific reason that doesn't require much proof that quote-unquote breaks the code of conduct to get a player banned. You know what I mean? There's a lot of players out there in PvP that, you know, don't like the way I play, want to beef me, whatever. It's just the nature of the game, right? No problem with that. But it becomes an issue when they're able to manipulate the game systems and, you know, like I missed a ball group date because of that 3-day suspension. You know, we couldn't group on that day, and there were other groups out there able to roam freely and do what they want on our normal group day, you know, with no competition because we weren't able to be there. So it's just stuff like that that sort of kind of bothers me. That's the nitty-gritty of, I believe ZOS is wrongfully banning a lot of people. What the cause of it exactly is, I don't know. Okay, that's up to them to get to the bottom of it and compensate everyone affected accordingly. Because I know I'm a straight shooter, man. I don't do any cheating or exploiting or anything like that, right? I just use the systems in the game that are available to me, and if it seems like it's too good to be true, guys, it probably is, and you shouldn't abuse broken game mechanics. Everybody knows that. It's simple. Or maybe you should use it because it's you know, it's a part of their game, man. It's a game mechanic now. But no, like if something's clearly a bug, guys, like don't do that. You know what I mean? Anyway, bottom line is, ZOS wrongfully banned me and 2 of my buddies. Trying to get to the bottom of it. Hopefully it doesn't keep occurring, but it's not the first I've heard of something like this happening. Okay. So now that that's out the way, we talked about the writhing wall. We talked about ZOS banning people, you know, with essentially no proof. Next, we're going to talk about the state of combat and PvP. So let me not be completely negative. In this most recent update, they came out with some animation changes to light attacks, and I noticed some other animation changes. You kind of like stand differently when you have your weapons out. It's just very minor stuff. As far as like a performance perspective, I don't notice any significant difference in like light attack weaving or you know, it feels fine. I've heard other people complain that, you know, it feels different. Woo. To me, it honestly doesn't even like look that different or anything. It's a totally fine update. They did what they had to do to you know, decrease memory usage or whatever for lower end machines, like they said in the patch notes. So that's totally fine if that's what they have to do to make performance better. You know, good stuff. But what we should really talk about, another elephant in the room, this shit's more like a fucking megalodon in the room, you know what I mean? Something massive. It is the state of PvP right now. So obviously, if you scroll through my channel, I do a lot of outnumbered type of fighting, you know, meta builds and whatnot. Ball grouping as well. So ball grouping right now with subclassing, and as strong as cross healing is, they're very, very difficult to take out. I usually don't even ball group with like a full 12 man. I haven't ball grouped with a full 12 man in a long time. When I lead a group, it's usually between like 6 to 10. I've been doing, you know, 8 most commonly, and it's just insane how much power 8 people with a full group composition and off heals have to just walk around the map and essentially do whatever the fuck they want. Now, obviously, we've put in the work to perfect our group synergy, and you know, we're all strong players, woo woo woo. Like, you know, some would argue that we deserve to have that kind of power when we put in that kind of work to become that strong, right? But there's such a fat fucking gap between like someone who just started the game, doesn't have, you know, any kind of access to subclassing. You know, maybe they're trying out PvP for the first time. Their buddy just said, hey, you know, you got to get CP 160, get some decent gear, and then you can hop in there. And it's just never been further from the truth, man. The skill ceiling in this game for PvP is so fucking high. You know, if you're playing at a more casual level, you just don't stand a chance against people playing at that higher level. It's such a big gap. And so ball grouping, you know what I mean? It's very strong. Some could argue that it's a deserved power because you put in the work to get to that point or whatever. I think it's just a little too strong and overtuned with the amount of group synergy you're able to get via subclassing, because you can spec damage fully into damage. You don't have any wasted skill lines on a damage character. Your damage is doing full damage, right? Typically, it's going to be like storm calling, assassination, animal companions, and it just rips, man. And speaking of that combination of subclassing, that's also kind of the quote-unquote meta right now. You know, the typical Null Arca rallying cry with the Monomyth mythic. It's the game's been in a crit meta for a while, so there's nothing necessarily wrong with, you know, how much crit we're able to build. That's kind of just been a thing. I just think the crit has so far overshadowed any other type of form of damage. I mean, I can have a build with 3,000 penetration. As long as I have Monomyth and I'm built into crit damage, it can nuke anybody and anything. You don't need penetration, you barely need weapon and spell damage, right? All those stats are, they're not useless, guys, but they're damn sure fucking close to it, you know what I mean? Basically, the more crit you build, the stronger you are. And because of that, players in PvP are being forced to wear a ton of crit resistance. So there's an overwhelming amount of rallying cry everywhere, you know what I mean? Well, you know, when I ask the homies, like, hey, what build are you on? It's like, oh, I'm in Rallying Cry. Like, oh, of fucking course you are, because you have to be, you know what I mean? Full impen on your armor, maybe even Resilient CP for more crit resistance. You just have to build a certain way to counter that meta because it's so strong, right? It's so powerful. You see a lot more people rocking the 3 protective jewelry now. I would always typically do full infuse, maybe a bloodthirsty, but now it's so much damage, and even with the crazy amount of resistances and the damage is so high, guys. I'm sure you've noticed if you've played, but it's almost impossible to survive literally two decent players. They could be, you know, as long as they can move their thumbs. That's all they have to be able to do. In Null Arca and Rallying Cry, with Assassination, Animal Companion, Stormcalling, you could literally just get fucking one-shot by spammables. You know what I mean? Two contingency surprise attacks from 2 different people, and you're just nuked. You know what I mean? So, having high damage is cool. The problem with that is it's been encouraging a lot of players to play very tanky, and I don't mean like, you know, a tanky back bar or whatever. I mean like literal tanks. Like all they do, their only use in Cyrodiil is to go out and burn siege and hold block at a front line. They have no group synergy, they have no off heals for their alliance, and it's honestly just, if you do that, good for you, man. Just do what you gotta do, okay? Like, I get it. Anyway, the damage is so high in the game because of these 3 subclasses linked together that it's causing players to play like pussies. Okay, everyone's afraid to die, you know. And to me, it's just, it needs to be mixed up again. Obviously, subclassing was a huge mix-up to the meta and the way the game works. Unfortunately, when it dropped, Null Arca was also rebuffed. When Null Arca first came out, it was very strong. Then it was nerfed, and then it was buffed again to make it arguably stronger than it was when it released. Now, I started playing the Elder Scrolls Online when Kalurian's Legacy was like the meta like ganking set. I don't know if anyone remembers that. It was maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. Probably like 5 years ago. But Null Arca reminds me of Kalurian's Legacy. And look what they did to Kalurian's Legacy. It went from a 5-piece set that was able to hit, you know, for 14k, and it was able to do it every 5 seconds, I want to say, similar to Null Arca. So Null Arca's got a 4-second cooldown. It can hit just as high, and it's honestly easier to proc, and it goes out much faster than Kalurian's ever did. And Kalurian's was nerfed into the ground. It needed that nerf. It got a 50% damage reduction and a 100% duration cooldown increase. So it, you know, they have the damage and they doubled the cooldown, and it needed that because it was way too strong. You know what I mean? It's too much free damage for a 5-piece set to be doing. Null Arca's in the same position. It's the best single target DPS set in PvE, and you cannot change my mind. It's the best. and it's also the best in PvP. It's the best front bar set right now. I don't care what anyone says. It's statistically the best thing you can wear because it's free damage constantly. So when something like that is that powerful in both ends of the spectrum in the game, PvE and PvP, I think it needs to be looked at, right? It's a little too strong. Now don't get me wrong, I use it too. I also have it. I made a whole build video about it when Subclassing came out. You know, maybe I'm partially even to blame that the meta is this way. But ZOS, man. Please take a look at Null Arca. Potentially even the Storm Calling passives. I understand if anyone still wants to play pure Sorc or anything, the Storm Calling passives is like all that Sorc has left. But when you get a subclass skill line like Storm Calling, where you have Major Resolve, you have Major Brutality, you have Minor Expedition, you have 10% increased damage, 5% increase to physical damage, right? You get all these things in one skill line to give you both defense and offense. It's going to be the best option, right? I would argue maybe like the second best defensive subclassing skill line is going to be Restoring Light. It's very good defensively. But the amount of damage you lose going from Storm Calling to Restoring Light is insane. I mean, it's incredible how much damage Storm Calling does, guys. I mean, if you go back and look at the build video I made about it, it's hitting like 20,000 Dawnbreakers on groups of people. There's no reason it should give you that much damage. Personally, the really, really strong passive that I think needs to be looked at, ZOS, I'm talking to you if you're fucking watching, okay? It's the passive that gives you up to 10% more damage based on the enemy's current health. So if they have 100% health, you're doing 10% more damage to them automatically. And then you stack that with the 5% damage, physical and shock damage. You put a shock contingency on, and you put the Dawnbreaker on, and then, you know, all of a sudden you're hitting a 20k Dawnbreaker into a 10k contingency because of those crazy passives, and you're one-shotting anybody that has 30k health. And also one more thing, I saw something from the new game director on the forums that actually made me feel somewhat hopeful. He basically said, you know, sorry for the Writhing Wall, we know it sucked, and we'll do better. So I think that was great. They took accountability, and they're adding 8,000 Seals of Endeavor to the first day of December's, you know, daily rewards. So, you know, that's kind of cool, like compensating the players for wasted time and you know, false hopes and whatnot. Like, that's cool. So recognizing the issue and apologizing and taking a sort of accountability, that's like fucking unheard of from Zenimax. So shout out to the new game director. I don't know his name, but that's really cool. So, you know, as a player, I super appreciate that. That's a totally great sort of vibe to put off right from the start, you know what I mean? And hopefully the rest of Zenimax follows in this guy's footsteps in the matter of taking accountability and wanting to do better for themselves, you know, their own image to their player base. Because right now, their image to their player base, like myself, again, I have 10,000 hours in the game. ZOS's image isn't looking great because the bans, the Writhing Wall event, you know, Homeboy, the new game director, is sort of their saving grace for me, at least, when it comes to that Writhing Wall event. You know, they took accountability. So what's next is for them to figure out what to do as far as PvP balance. PvP balance right now with subclassing guys is fucking cooked. Even PvE. I got the Mindbender trifecta title. That's Sanity's Edge. And guys, I don't fucking PvE. You know what I mean? My raid group is a bunch of PvPers. And we were able to go in there with these subclassing setups with the, you know, the guidance of our raid lead and like 2 other people in our group that regularly PvE. And the rest of us are PvPers, and we were able to go in there and smash that shit out. You know what I mean? That's a pretty difficult thing to do, in my opinion. And it was a lot of fun, but I just feel like we wouldn't have been able to do it without subclassing in the time frame that we did. So, again, there, you know, might be some balance required there. Subclassing is very strong, and it's the only thing it's done is it's increased the skill ceiling from the skill floor. And if you don't understand what that means, is if you're a veteran, long-time player with a high understanding of the game, you pay attention to all the patch notes that have come out. You know, if you're on that level of player and you're going against someone at the skill floor, someone who's just started, doesn't have that type of gameplay knowledge and history of what's going on with all the patch notes and stuff, the gap is wider than ever, okay? And it's very daunting for newer players, as it should be. And not only that, but subclassing requires an extreme amount of skill points because it costs double that. It makes it even less accessible for newer players. Just my 2 cents on the thought. Anyway, I said I was going to shut up 3.5 minutes ago, so I'm going to shut up. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Let me know what you guys think about what we've talked about in the video, the false bans, the Writhing Wall event. Let me know what you think about the new game director of Zenimax Online Studios. Let me know what you think about balance in PvE. Should Null Arca be nerfed? Comment down below. Thanks for watching. Peace.